This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Austrian Grand Prix, the 11th round of the 2022 Formula One World Championship season. Thank you very much for joining us here on the BBC Sport website and on SiriusXM and on the Formula One app. And it's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon for what's going to be, hopefully, a very interesting 71 laps around the Spielberg circuit. A couple of hours, maybe a bit more than a couple of hours south of Vienna. Alongside me for commentary, I am very lucky to have Jamie Chadwick, the two-time W Series champion and Williams development driver. Also, the BBC's chief Formula One writer, Andrew Benson. And Max Verstappen will be starting this race on pole position in just over 4 minutes' time. Charles Leclerc will be alongside him in the front row in the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz third in the other Ferrari, with George Russell fourth in the Mercedes, and fifth, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. That's the order they finished the sprint yesterday. Ferrari had a little bit of an attack yesterday, Jamie, to try and get ahead of Max Verstappen. Didn't quite work out, but they've got almost 3 times as long to try and do it today.
They do. I still think they need to make... Well, if they're going to make any moves or attacks, it's got to be quite early. Not let Max get his head down, get away. The DRS proves to be very strong here. There's 3 DRS zones, and it looks like they can follow closer than before in the fastest last sector. So definitely I think they have to do it early, but that also means that they probably can't fight as hard as they'd like to internally. Yeah, absolutely. They were wheel to wheel yesterday on a couple of occasions. As far as the championship is concerned, Max Verstappen leads it, 181 points for the Dutchman, 147 points for Sergio Perez, who's in second, and then Charles Leclerc is third, so he is 44 points back from Max Verstappen, and then it's another 11 points, so 55 points from Verstappen in the lead to Sainz in fourth position in the championship standings. Then there's quite a big gap back to Russell, so that's going to be the fight at the front. Perez versus Russell, I think, is going to be pretty interesting over fourth place. And also Lewis Hamilton starting in 8th. Can he get in and join that sort of Perez-Russell fight? Because I would suggest, broadly speaking, over the course of the season, Hamilton has been maybe a little quicker than Russell in race trim. It's there or thereabouts. But can he get involved in that fight for fourth? Yeah, when Hamilton is on it in the races, he's almost one of the quickest drivers out there, to be honest. We've seen it at Silverstone, in Canada as well, Barcelona. Yeah, just a huge amount of pace coming from that car. So it'd be good to see how he gets on. He struggled yesterday to make moves to overtake, particularly with the straight line speed. So we need to see how much progress he can make through the grid. But if he can get through, at least on strategy, then he should be there to fight. And strategy-wise, Andrew Benson, everybody on the medium tyres, bar Joe in 13th, Tsunoda in 16th, and Vettel and Alonso in 18th and 19th. Any surprises there?
Not hugely. The favoured strategy is a one-stop probably on mediums and then onto the hard, but that's going to mean quite a lot of tyre management because like yesterday's sprint race was only 23 laps. They need to go a bit longer than that to make the medium-hard strategy work for them. They're all concerned. There is the possibility for the inverse strategy, which those people starting on the hards, as you mentioned, will be doing. The risk for that, for the people at the front, is that you're likely to lose ground off the grid and then your race is a bit stuck anyway.
Okay, so that's the way the strategy is looking to play out. Valtteri Bottas has to start from the pit lane, by the way, because he changed his power unit earlier on in the weekend. So Verstappen will be on pole position. The Dutchman is sitting there now. If he wins this race today, he will have amassed the same amount of Formula One wins as Sir Jackie Stewart, which is quite a remarkable achievement. And quite interesting in a lot of ways, actually, which I don't really need to get bogged down into now. But he's got 1 world title. Sir Jackie Stewart had 3, but yet he's won the same amount of races because there's longer seasons and all that sort of thing. But anyway, not that exciting. And he is going to start on pole position. The 2 Ferraris are behind him. You can hear the engines firing up. Carlos Sainz, who won his first ever Grand Prix in Silverstone a week ago, is lining up 3rd on the grid. He's on the clean line up towards turn 1. But Leclerc did get the best start yesterday, out of him and Verstappen at least. Between the pair of them, he did. He got a little bit unfortunate with getting squeezed over to the right-hand side. That gave Carlos a good look into turn 1 and then the run down into turn 3. So I think it's going to be launch off the line, but also preparation for turn 3. The slipstream effect down there is strong, and if they can ideally not fight each other too hard, at least one of them should have a good opportunity on Max. Well, all the mechanics now leaving the grid, and just the 19 cars left underneath the foothills of the Styrian Mountains for 71 laps of racing in the Austrian Grand Prix. Verstappen will be starting it on pole position. It's a fairly clear day, a bit of cloud around, air temperature just 20 degrees, but it's 2 o'clock here. It's now time for the Austrian Grand Prix. So as the cars make their way around on the formation lap, this is the grid. Max Verstappen starts on pole position with Charles Leclerc alongside him on the front row in the Ferrari. Carlos Sainz is third in the other Ferrari with George Russell fourth for Mercedes. Fifth, Sergio Perez in the Red Bull. Esteban Ocon is sixth in the Alpine. Kevin Magnussen is seventh for Haas. Eighth is Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. Ninth is Mick Schumacher. And 10th is Lando Norris. Daniel Ricciardo starts 11th in the other McLaren. Then it's Stroll, Joe, Gasly, Albon, the top 15. Tsunoda, Latifi, Vettel and Alonso, the 19 drivers that are starting on the track. Valtteri Bottas will be starting from the pits. Huge plumes of orange smoke rise up into the air and surround the beautiful green scenery of the side of the hill, basically, that this Red Bull ring is plastered onto, and the Max Verstappen fans in the grandstands making this literally a home race as well as figuratively, with it being the Red Bull ring. Huge plumes of that smoke coming over the race circuit, and now Verstappen is coming around into the final couple of corners and lining up on the front of the grid. He's now, well, he's slowed it down quite dramatically. I was just thinking everyone's going pretty quick in the middle sector there, and then Verstappen's backed them up quite dramatically at turn 9 and 10.
It's a short lap, and it's not that hot there, I don't think. So, yeah, tyre temperature's key. I think that's why he did quite a fast formation lap, and obviously doesn't want to be sat on the grid for too long. So he's backing them up so he doesn't have to wait hopefully too long on that pole position spot.
Lewis Hamilton just coming around the final corner now, almost coasting down the hill into that right-hander, and there's more flares being lit in the main grandstand as well that overlooks the start-finish straight. And 71 laps are about to get underway. There was a collision at the back. In fact, Hamilton got involved in a bit of contact in the first corner with Pierre Gasly, but Verstappen is now lined up on his pole position grid slot. Just behind him, to his right, is Charles Leclerc. The first corner, a fairly tight right-hander at turn 1 up the hill, and Fernando Alonso is going to be the last driver to line up in position. Did he have a bit of a problem there, Alonso? He was going quite slowly. He's managed to get it into gear now and light up the rear tyres, but Verstappen's been waiting on pole position for quite a while now as Alonso comes around the final corner, does now take up position at the back of the grid. Verstappen on pole, Leclerc second, Sainz is third. In fact, Vettel's only just lining up now, but that was quite a long grid formation. But we're ready to go now. Round 11 of the 2022 Formula One World Championship. Verstappen's on pole, Leclerc's alongside him, Sainz and Russell are on the second row. The Austrian Grand Prix begins. Oh, it's a bit slow this time from Leclerc, and Verstappen's able to get across pretty quickly. Russell is going to the inside of Sainz into turn 1. Verstappen holds the lead. Leclerc is second. Russell is third. Sainz sticks it to the outside and tries to hold the position that way. They're still going to be wheel to wheel coming up the run towards turn 3. But Verstappen holds the lead. Leclerc is second. Sainz holds on to third position. Perez trying to go to the outside now of George Russell up at turn 3, and he might be able to pull that one off. Everybody else is side by side through the right-hander. Hamilton was still fighting with Mick Schumacher. Russell has managed to get back ahead of Perez as they come down the hill, but it is Verstappen leading. It's Leclerc second. It's Sainz third. It's still wheel to wheel. It's Perez spun into the gravel. Russell hits Perez. Perez is in the gravel. He's managed to keep it going fairly impressively, and that means that Esteban Ocon is now up into 5th position. So Russell 4th, Perez in the gravel, but Verstappen leads the way.
Oof. Quite an exciting first lap. Not what we predicted. They were predicting maybe a bit more fighting between the Ferraris, but George Russell got himself nicely up behind Leclerc at the beginning of the race, and yeah, it's just the straight line speed of the Mercedes that meant he couldn't get that move done. And then yeah, Perez around the outside. It's always a pinch point there. I'll have to see it again to see who is maybe to blame, but it's always difficult, 2 cars into one in that corner.
Looked like maybe Russell got a little bit out of shape and sort of drifted wide into Perez, but as you say, we'll have a look again. I'm not. Here comes Hamilton trying to get Kevin Magnussen coming up the hill into turn 3, but he's not quite close enough. He's stuck in between the two Hasses. He spent most of yesterday behind the two Haas cars. Vettel's reporting damage on the radio. Perez is 20th and about 15 seconds away from Valtteri Bottas. Into the pits comes Perez. So Perez pits then for maybe just a set of hard tyres, and we'll see what damage he got. Also interesting to see what damage Russell got. It's just a tyre change, I think, for Sergio Perez in the Red Bull as he makes his way back out onto the circuit. So lap 2 of 71, Verstappen is leading, just ahead, less than a second actually ahead of Charles Leclerc. So Verstappen had built up quite a big margin, but Leclerc is just about keeping with him and maybe in DRS range at the start of the next lap.
This is crucial. He needs to stay in DRS range to have a chance of attacking at any point in this race. If he lets Max slip out of that, it's going to be hard for him to stay with him, I think. Across
the line, it's 1.1 seconds, the gap between them. DRS is now enabled. Verstappen leading, Leclerc second, Sainz third, Russell fourth, Ocon fifth. Here they come up the run towards turn 3. DRS open for Esteban Ocon, but I think none of the top 3 have the DRS open just yet. Well, obviously the race leader won't, but I don't think... Oh, a bit of a mistake from Hamilton going in a little bit too deep into turn 3. That might give Schumacher a chance to get ahead of the Mercedes driver here. Here they come down towards turn 4. Is he going to be close enough for a move? No, doesn't quite have the overspeed, but Hamilton needs Magnussen to drop out of Ocon's DRS range, and then he'll be able to try and have an opportunity. Leclerc is right there on the brink of getting into the DRS of Max Verstappen. He's coming around the final couple of corners now. The gap is marginally over a second. It now dips down to just under a second as they come through the final corner. Both absolutely pushing on this lap, trying to set the fastest lap of the race, and Leclerc is within DRS range as they start the lap. So he sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, has the DRS on Max Verstappen. Sainz does not have it on Leclerc. Let's see what unfolds now. This is going to be interesting. This is crucial now. If he can get within half a second at 4/10 across the start-finish straight, he's going to be in line to make an overtake. So crucial that he stays in DRS, and he's got that gap down now. At the race start, it was a very good start from George Russell. I don't love what Sainz did here, because Russell was well up the inside and Sainz just floored it, went off the track, rejoined, and that's what allowed him to kind of keep the place ahead of Russell. And I don't know, you're not really meant to do that. It was, but I'm not too sure where else he could have maybe gone. Unfortunately, he was just out-dragged. The Mercedes really lacked straight-line speed in that moment. And, yeah, George had the move done into turn 1 and on the exit, but wasn't able to maintain it going into turn 3. Now this is the bit I'm interested in. Perez around the outside. In my opinion, he gets ahead on the braking, in the braking zone. It's marginally ahead now. It's a tricky one. 2 into 1 doesn't seem to go very well into that corner. Alex Albon and Hamilton a few years ago found that out. Yeah, Russell.
Nothing I could do, he just turned into me. Understood.
I mean, to me, personally, this is just racing incident all over it. I agree.
You saw it clear now with George. I gave him enough room. Yeah, copy, Checo.
He gave him enough room.
I don't think he gave him loads, to be fair.
Not enough to be risk-free. That early in the race, I don't know. Yeah, it's marginal. They could have made it through there, theoretically, together, but you're putting yourself in such a risky position.
Schumacher's got ahead of Hamilton. So Hamilton's dropped down to 8th place because he made a mistake on the exit of the first corner, got sideways on the sausage curb, and Schumacher was able to breeze past. So Hamilton is now down to 8th, Schumacher in 7th. There's just 0.6 of a second between Verstappen and Leclerc in the fight for the lead as they come through turns 7 and then 8 and then up towards the final 2 right-handers on the track at turn 9. Russell doesn't have the pace to keep with the front runners. He's basically got no front wing end plate on the left-hand side of his front wing, so that's not going to be helping him at all. And if anything, he's got all of these cars queued up behind him. Ocon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Hamilton all appear to have more pace than George Russell at the moment, which is unsurprising, really, considering that damage that he's got. Yeah, it's not ideal, the damage, although we saw Leclerc run with something similar at Silverstone, and with the new cars this year, most of the downforce is generated from the floor, so it's probably not as detrimental to performance as it would have been previously, but still, it's going to hurt him, and without anyone punching a hole in the air in front of him with DRS, he's going to really be hurting. Yeah, he is running in 4th place then George Russell. Verstappen, Leclerc and Sainz are the top 3. Leclerc again 0.6 of a second back from Verstappen by the time they come on the exit of turn 4. Then it goes up by a couple of tenths as they swing through 6 and 7. And he's actually managed to keep the gap pretty close this time for Leclerc. As they come now towards turn 9 and 10, it just creeps back up to 0.8 as they come into the final couple of corners. Kevin Magnussen is still trying to find a way past Esteban Ocon. The top 10 is Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Russell, Ocon the top 5, Magnussen, Schumacher, Hamilton, Norris, Ricciardo the top 10, then Stroll, Gasly, Albon, Tsunoda, Zhou the top 15, Latifi, Alonso, Vettel, Bottas and Perez, the 20 drivers still running. BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson.
A point worth making right now, Jack, is that it's now 2 Ferraris against 1 Red Bull at the front, which gives Ferrari the opportunity to play some strategy games against Red Bull. Typically that would mean you stop one of them earlier, try and force Red Bull to make that early stop to cover that driver off, whoever stops first, and then you let the other one run as long as possible and try and pincer them that way. Well, let's see how it plays out.
Which way round would you do that? Would you be pitting Leclerc to try and make Verstappen pit, or would you be pitting Sainz to try and make Verstappen pit?
Well, logically you put Leclerc on the advantageous strategy because he's the leader in the championship, but what the advantageous strategy is obviously is a difficult question.
Well, that was kind of my question to you.
I know.
Lap 7 of 71. Leclerc is still just half a second behind Verstappen as they come through the left-hander of turn 6. This is what I love. This is when I love motor racing. Just the 2 leaders absolutely going for it, lap after lap, lapping within 1/10 of a second of each other. But Leclerc on this lap actually is looking pretty quick. He was very quick in the first sector, and he is going to not set the fastest lap of the race this time, but chip a couple of tenths out.
Perez is...
Hamilton saying their straight line speed is crazy, and is that Perez there?
Coming around to be lapped at sort of the perfect time, I think. He might be able to get Max into DRS, at least on the next straight.
Here comes Leclerc. He's really close to the back of Max Verstappen for the lead of the race, coming up into turn 3. Not close enough for the move, is he? Whoa, he nose to the inside there, Leclerc. I thought maybe he was lunging it. He couldn't quite get the perception from the camera angle we were seeing, but if anything, that's lost him a bit of ground. An odd move that from Leclerc.
I think he's trying to show his nose getting the mirrors, but you're not going to overtake Max Verstappen like that. You've really got to put a move in. And I think the only thing is it's one thing being able to stay with Max when the DRS is like this. It's another being able to overtake and actually get, a gap from him. So Leclerc's going to be pushing really hard at the moment. He has to make the move whilst he's still in this sort of DRS zone that he is. Yeah,
absolutely. Verstappen is closing in on the back of his teammate Perez, as you say, to lap him. Now, Perez can't just sit there, and he's got out of the way now, so there we go. I was thinking Perez can't just sit there and stay ahead of Verstappen so he gets the DRS, because he will get blue flags and he will have to get out of the way, and he has done it pretty swiftly, Sergio Perez. Here we go then again, lap 9 of 71, half a second between them as they come up towards turn 1. Neat and tidy from both of them through there, and now the DRS is open for Charles Leclerc up towards turn 3. Maybe close enough this time around, not quite. Onto the brakes into 3. Leclerc nice and late and deep on the brakes. Gets a reasonable, gets a bit of wheel spin coming off turn 3, and as a result drops away a little on the run towards turn 4. But this is fairly relentless stuff here from Charles Leclerc.
Showing his nose down the inside every now and then, isn't he? He's definitely eyeing up an overtake at some point. I think it needs to be about 4 tenths across the start-finish straight for it to be a sort of easy overtake with the DRS into turn 3.
Yeah, and at the moment it's been about 5 or 6 tenths of a second between them. There's 6 tenths of a second between them now as they come down towards turn 9 and 10 again. Sainz is running lonely in 3rd place, but still not dropping back at all from the leaders. Russell still has the Ocon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Hamilton queue behind him. Then there's a gap back to Norris and Ricciardo in 9th and 10th. Stroll is actually within DRS range of Ricciardo in their fight over the final points-paying position in 10th spot. Here we go again up towards turn 3, and Leclerc looks a little too far back once more. Up towards the slowest corner on the circuit, and Leclerc sends it! Leclerc goes for the lead of the Grand Prix. They're wheel to wheel, and on the exit of the corner, Verstappen holds on. Round the outside, now down towards turn 4. Verstappen ahead, Leclerc in the slipstream. He now goes to the outside of Verstappen, into the 4th corner on the circuit, locks up, makes a little mistake, catches the right front, not terribly, but Can't quite make the move, but that was a really nice attempt from Leclerc up into turn 3 from a long way back.
He was a long way back. I think he must have just rolled off the brakes and sent it in.
I cannot hold this long.
Understood, Max.
Verstappen saying, I can't hold him off this long. And Russell's been given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision in that incident with Sergio Perez. Here comes Leclerc again, out across the line. Verstappen leads, lap 11 now of 71. Verstappen leads, Leclerc second. Onto the brakes, up into the right-hander of turn 1 again. And he might be a little bit closer this time than he was previously. Verstappen will obviously know that the lunge is an imminent manoeuvre now, but he's a little too far back this time again, Charles Leclerc. Oh, another lockup. They're coming into the third corner. He's absolutely pushing here, Leclerc, down towards turn 4. Is he going to be able to make the move? No, a little too far back still. This is great stuff.
And he knows he needs to push, because if he looks in his mirrors, he's got Sainz closing in a bit as well. So he's really got to make this move whilst Max seems to be struggling. Although he's so far back every time he seems to be making a lunge. So, yeah, they did well there not to make contact, to be honest. It was nice racing. I wouldn't be surprised if he keeps going for those lunges. Now he's got a bit of a taste for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Leclerc gave Verstappen room on the exit of the corner, and Verstappen was able to hold on around there, because it's a kind of curiously cambered corner at turn 3. Even if you're on the sort of high side, it's kind of like banking almost, where you're kind of all right out there.
You can be. There's a little bit in the middle of the corner where, on power, it always causes a little bit of an upset and gives you a little bit of wheel spin. So a clean exit out of there is what they were both looking for. They both didn't get, and that's why they were able to have the run down into turn 4 as well.
Lap 12 of 71. Here comes Russell pits, then presumably to serve his 5-second penalty and to repair the damage to his front wing. So George Russell pitting from 4th position. And he's going to lose a lot of time. Very early pit stop that from the Mercedes team, I would have thought. Leclerc closing in again on Verstappen. Not close enough for a move this time into 4. Here he is! Leclerc goes for it and takes the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. Beautiful move from the Monegasque man. And the Ferrari hits the front. Fantastic stuff. What can Verstappen now do in response?
Unbelievable move. That was so late on the brakes into turn 4. You rarely see lunges like that. Wow. Yeah, so impressive.
This is a man who knows he needs to get his championship challenge back on track. Had a huge slide coming out through turn 6 after he made that move, because he knows he now needs to try and break Verstappen's DRS. He needs to get more than a second away from the Red Bull driver if he wants to hold on. He must have been 2 car lengths back by the time he sent it to the inside, down into turn 4. Beautiful, lovely, clean move. And Leclerc is in the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's all gone very silent around the Styrian Hills at the moment. And Verstappen is now down to 2nd place. Charles Leclerc leads, and Verstappen is trying to get back at him as they come through the middle sector now. And Verstappen is back ahead, I think. Verstappen's back ahead. So Verstappen has got back ahead of Charles Leclerc. We're being shown a replay of George Russell's pit stop, but Max Verstappen... No, he's not back in the lead of the race, because I think Leclerc just got him back, and it's a lock-up for Verstappen down at the right-hander of turn 4. So they are swapping places, I think, these two race leaders.
And Leclerc's had a 2nd warning for track limits, which, if he goes off again, that's already a 5-second penalty. So this early on in the race, that's not what he wants to hear.
Yeah, that's true. Something Leclerc needs to keep an eye out for. Carlos Sainz is only 1.5 seconds back from Max Verstappen, and Verstappen pits. Verstappen into the pits then, from 2nd place on lap 13 of 71. So lost the lead, got it back, and now comes into the pit lane. So what will Ferrari do here? Will they have to defend the undercut with Leclerc? Do they try and defend it with Sainz? On go the new tyres. It looked a bit slow for Red Bull. It's only 3.2 seconds, but about a second slower than they have managed before. And he's going to come out in traffic here. This is very, very curious strategy from Red Bull. Andrew Benson, I'm interested to know what's going on in your brain.
I think they're going aggressive. I think they've gone for a 2-stop. I think it's way too early to try and get to the end on these hard tyres, so he'll go as fast as he can on these hard tyres and try and come back at Leclerc at the end of the race. Question now is, what do Ferrari do? Do they leave Leclerc out on the optimum 1-stop strategy? Hope that they can hold on that way. And what do they do with Sainz? Because they need to use Sainz really as a blocker on Verstappen now, potentially.
And Verstappen surely is going to get so much traffic from all of these, the Ocon, Magnussen, Schumacher, Hamilton queue ahead. Really bizarre.
I think they had to do something. He dropped just out of a second from Leclerc, and I think for him now to be able to fight back, they had to do something. It's now how much tyre life the Ferraris have, because clearly they were pushing hard. Whether they need to be forced into a two-stop strategy as well, or if they can stick to their original plan and be slightly less aggressive, we'll see.
Hamilton has got ahead of Mick Schumacher. So Hamilton is now up into 5th position, ahead of Mick Schumacher. He'll now try and close in on Kevin Magnussen. Magnussen has actually lost the DRS to Ocon in front, so this should be a doable manoeuvre for Hamilton. Into the right-hander at turn 1 he comes, and now starting to climb the hill with the DRS open. Is he going to be able to get him? Closing in on the back of Magnussen, and he can't quite get it done. So can't quite make the move there. Lap 15 of 71. I'm actually not convinced that the lead did swap back between Leclerc and Verstappen. Here comes Hamilton to the inside, down into the right-hander. But yeah, I think our timing screens might have just been delayed. So while it looked as though they'd switched places, I don't actually think they did. I think there was just that one move from Leclerc, and that's all that happened. Verstappen's been given his first warning for track limits, lap 15 of 71. Leclerc leading, Sainz second, and they both stay out on circuit still.
So the track limits is quite interesting because I believe you get 3 warnings, and then after that it's a 5-second penalty, and that's any time you go off. So with most of the Grand Prix still left to go, for them to already be on track limits warnings, it's going to be something they really need to keep an eye out, because in Formula 3, Formula 2, they're dishing out penalties like no tomorrow.
Here comes Verstappen. Now he's stuck behind Mick Schumacher coming into the first corner. He's getting onto the power now. He should be able to breeze past Schumacher this time around, because Kevin Magnussen has pitted. So that is one fewer driver that Max Verstappen needs to worry about getting past on his climb back through the order as he turns into the right-hander now of turn 3. His next target is going to be Lewis Hamilton, who's 1.8 seconds up the road. How quickly can Verstappen close in? Magnussen has pitted. Lap 16 of 71. Leclerc leads the way, 3 seconds ahead of Sainz. 14 seconds back to Esteban Ocon in 3rd. Hamilton is 4th. Verstappen is 5th. Schumacher 6th. Stroll 7th. Tsunoda 8th. Verstappen has pitted, by the way, in 5th place. Joe is 9th. Alonso is 10th. Vettel is 11th. And then you have those that have made the pit stop, which is Magnussen, Norris, Ricciardo, and Hamilton just got a blue flag waved at him there for Max Verstappen behind, which isn't technically accurate, as he comes through the final corner and out over the start-finish straight. And Ocon pitted as well. So Ocon has pitted and Schumacher has pitted. So this isn't working out terribly for Verstappen in terms of everybody's now kind of getting out of the way. He doesn't have to make his way through the field.
It's just how much of a difference he can now make on this set of hards.
He's right up behind Hamilton as they come through turn 4. They've got Sergio Perez just ahead of him, so Verstappen is going to be putting a lap on Sergio Perez again. It'll still be the first time he's lapped him, but it'll just be the second time he's lapped him for the first time on lap 17 of 71. Leclerc leading, 3.3 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. The Ferrari's staying out there then, and Perez moves out of the way of that fight between Hamilton and Verstappen in their fight over 3rd and 4th now. So Verstappen is nearly back up. And you know what? Here's Hamilton's radio.
Tyres are good, mate.
Hamilton's saying his tyres are good. And Verstappen is not too far away here from the race lead. Perez has been given a warning for track limits. Here comes Verstappen on the back of Hamilton now, coming up towards turn 1. And Hamilton just covers the inside. But Verstappen, I think, will be able to breeze past on the run towards turn 3 now. Here they come. Hamilton, how hard is he going to fight Verstappen? He'll know that he's not in Verstappen's race. Verstappen to the outside. Hamilton holding the inside line coming into turn 3. Obviously, maybe you might know there's a little bit of history between these two, and Hamilton covers the inside again, coming down into 4, but Verstappen breezes past with the DRS open. So he's now up into 3rd place, and he hasn't lost much time to the Ferraris.
He's effectively forced Ferrari into making a decision quickly, which they didn't. They have stayed out, they've committed to their one-stop strategy, which is the favourable strategy. So to be honest, later in the race, it should still again even itself out. But if Max keeps this pace up, he will take the net lead when both the Ferraris come in the pits.
Andrew Benson, your thoughts?
I think the question now is the one-stop the favourable strategy? Because basically the only people not on a two-stop at the moment are the Ferraris and Lewis Hamilton. And Lance Stroll, who doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's obviously Verstappen's triggered the entire field to make that switch. But they've done the switch for a reason. They're seeing degradation information on the tyres of all the cars around the field.
And there's no way that this can be a one-stop for Verstappen.
Not now. For him, the question is the Ferrari strategy going to work against the Red Bull strategy? And we'll have to wait and see. But it's one against the other.
Yeah. Well, Verstappen is 19. He's 20 seconds back from Charles Leclerc in the lead of the Grand Prix. That's how long a pit stop is, basically. That's your pit loss time. So Verstappen is basically a pit stop back with, in theory, both of them needing to pit again. So that's going to be the curious element to this Grand Prix. It's quite a short Grand Prix also. We're already on lap 19 of 71. It'll be done in probably a little under an hour, this Grand Prix, if there aren't any safety cars, which there could have been for a moment there, because Fernando Alonso got very loose coming out of turn 4. He's trying to attack Zhou Guanyu, neither of whom have pitted, so they are very much on the one stop, because in fact they both started on the hard tyre as well. Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix and brings the gap down to Charles Leclerc in the lead of the race. So this is going to be very, very interesting to watch this unfold over the next 52 laps of racing. Charles Leclerc leading, Carlos Sainz second. The gap between them is 3.8 seconds. Verstappen is third, Hamilton is fourth, and none of them have pitted. Lance Stroll in fifth has not pitted either, nor has Tsunoda in sixth, Zhou in seventh, Alonso eighth, and Vettel ninth. So the top 9, only Verstappen has made a pit stop. Everybody else outside the top 9 basically has pitted. Here comes Ocon on Vettel coming into turn 3. He goes to the outside. Does he make it all the way around the outside? Esteban Ocon, I think he does. And Ocon gets up into 9th place. Vettel drops down into 10th position. Big queue forming behind Yuki Tsunoda, who's in 6th place at the moment. Fernando Alonso getting a bit frustrated because he knows he's got a lot more pace than Zhou Guanyu, and he just can't find a way past the Chinese driver, who's trying to get ahead of the Japanese driver ahead of him in Yuki Tsunoda. And this is costing Alonso quite a bit of time, because you get the feeling in clear air he might have been able to make more progress than this. Mick Schumacher, meanwhile, has been attacking one of the McLarens, Daniel Ricciardo, coming up into turn 3. And so Schumacher is into 13th place ahead of Ricciardo. The McLarens have pitted, I think. Well, I'll have a look at this when that shakes out. Yeah, so they've managed to get and split the Haas drivers for a moment, but Schumacher's just got ahead of Vettel there as well. But Norris has managed to get ahead of Schumacher in all of that.
Norris has come out of this quite well, because Daniel Ricciardo was very close behind Norris after the pit stops and now seems to have dropped back.
We are considering plan E for Kiko.
But why have they left that so late? They're both at the front of the field. They should have split the strategy a bit earlier, in my opinion. They've got 2 cars ahead of Verstappen at this point in the race, yet, I don't know. Let's see if that plays out for them.
I think
we were also having the discussion on the Thursday podcast. The reason Benson and I are giggling is because on the Thursday podcast we were discussing Ferrari strategy, and they always are on a plan D or a plan E, and that was a plan E for Echo. The fact you're even having to use the phonetic alphabet to discuss what plan you're on is quite remarkable.
So I think the problem for them is this. If they were going to cover Verstappen, the only option they had to cover him was Leclerc, because Verstappen would have beaten Sainz. If they pitted Sainz straight away, he would have been behind Verstappen, so they're not using him advantageously in any way. So they obviously they decided at that point they didn't want to gamble on Leclerc doing the same strategy as Verstappen. Maybe the pit window was too tight. Maybe they weren't sure that they could get him out ahead, and they prefer to stick with what they know. So I think we can't criticise them yet, although the plan E remarks, I think, is a fair point.
Yeah, it's not a criticism, it's just funny. Maybe they never have an A and B. Maybe they just start at D and go from there. Here comes Esteban Ocon now. So Fernando Alonso has moved out of the way to let Esteban Ocon on the newer tyres try his luck at getting ahead of Zhou Guanyu, and he's going to do it. Down into turn 4, the Alpine to the inside, and gets ahead of Zhou, and runs a bit wide on the exit. Joe sticks his nose in, but he can't keep the position. So Ocon now up into 7th. His next target is going to be Yuki Tsunoda in 6th. Max Verstappen again sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. He's now 17 seconds back from Charles Leclerc. He's taken 3 seconds out of that advantage.
Okay, Leclerc's last lap 10.8, same for Sainz. Looks like they could be going on a one-stop, so we'll be pushing all the way to the end of the race here, Max.
Interesting.
So that seems to confirm that Red Bull are on the 2-stop and Ferrari are on the 1-stop. I didn't disbelieve Andrew when he said it, but it's nice to have the team confirming it too. So it's a lot of pushing then for Verstappen. He's got to be trying to close the gap to the Ferraris. And yeah, interesting stuff. So Ferrari are going to lose track position here. Ocon to the inside of Tsunoda, and that's how they're going to have to fight it. Now, they seem to have the pace on track in the opening stint, so there's a reasonable belief that Leclerc could get back ahead of Verstappen, even if they're on, especially if he's on newer tyres, because he does seem to have the pace.
Assuming Leclerc can lap at a decent pace when he comes out on his hard tyres after his pit stop, the race is going to be the end.
Yeah.
It's going to be Verstappen coming back at Leclerc after his second pit stop on much fresher tyres, and can they hold Verstappen back? And that's where Sainz might come in handy, and that's where Ferrari might have thought, well, we're not going to split the strategies. We're going to have them both on the same strategy, and we'll use Sainz to defend against Verstappen as long as they get the strategy organised right on that front. And then Leclerc's got a bit of a buffer.
Fernando Alonso right on the back of Joe still. His teammate has got ahead of him, and actually Alonso did sort of a half look into turn 10, and that's cost him here because the Haas of Magnussen goes to the inside suddenly with 3 wide into turn 1. Joe fully bails out of it and gets overtaken by 2 cars. 3 wide into the first corner. Magnussen gets ahead of 2, but it's not over because Magnussen has the DRS. Joe's going to get absolutely swamped here. Norris goes to the outside of Alonso. He is going to try and get ahead around the outside into turn 3, and he does it, and he might get Magnussen as well. Magnussen pushes him right up to the grass on the exit. He's got the DRS here, Lando Norris, down towards the right-hander of turn 4, and he goes all the way around the outside, but Magnussen is late on the brakes. Norris tries to keep it in there. They both give each other plenty of space. Norris maybe goes in a bit deep, but all of that means Magnussen is 8th, Norris is 9th, Alonso is 10th, Schumacher is 11th, Joe's suddenly 12th. He was 8th about 20 seconds ago, and he's suddenly down in 12th position. That was some of the maddest racing I've seen in F1 for a while, that.
What a battle. It looks like
Formula Ford.
I know. Alonso was busy defending from Magnussen, and next thing you know, they're both diving up the inside. Maybe Joe has a problem, though, because he bailed out very early, and he's now come in the pits, so I'm not too sure why he did commit to a bit more of an overtake then.
He is on those old tyres. He hadn't pitted yet. Neither had Fernando Alonso, and as you say, they were almost in their own fight, and suddenly they were up the inside of Joe.
When? I didn't go off.
Hamilton being told he's had a lap deleted, and the team saying, or he's then saying when, I didn't go off. So Leclerc leads, 4 seconds ahead of Sainz. Again, Verstappen took a second on that last lap out of the Ferraris in the lead of the Grand Prix. Mick Schumacher is the sound you can hear as he is now trying to get ahead of Fernando Alonso for 10th position. Late on the brakes into turn 4. It's not half-hearted, but it wasn't sort of fully committed, but Alonso saw him coming and gave him room, and Schumacher is now up into 10th place. So it's still shuffled out in the kind of order we were expecting it to be, i.e. Ocon's in 6th, then there's Tsunoda who hasn't pitted, and then there is Magnussen, Norris, Schumacher and Alonso. But very, very busy in that midfield, even though they've shaken out into the order that they were after the pit stop anyway. Lap 26 of 71, down into the final corner. Only been going half an hour or so in this Grand Prix. It's felt very, very busy indeed. But yeah, on that last lap, it was only half a second that Verstappen took out, and Perez is in the pits, and Perez is out of the race. So
Such a shame for Sergio Perez. I think it promised a lot of hope, especially after such a good race yesterday. But Ferrari now getting ready for a pit stop, so I wonder who they're bringing in.
It's Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc told to pit this lap, and in comes the race leader. Lap 26 of 71. So he has gone, what, another 15 laps, I think, than Max Verstappen. Into the pits comes Verstappen. The hard tyres go on. Out he goes, heading towards the pit lane exit, and Verstappen is going to come out. It was 13 laps, the difference between them. So Verstappen is now ahead of Charles Leclerc. Verstappen's tyres, he pitted 13 laps before Charles Leclerc. Leclerc has got the gap to Hamilton here and comes out in that third place. So now, what do they do with Sainz? Sainz leads the Grand Prix, 10 seconds ahead of Verstappen, who's 7 seconds ahead of Leclerc, and we think Verstappen has to pit again. Verstappen has to pit again.
Also, how much does Charles now need to manage this? And they bring in Sainz in as well, because he's still got 43 laps to go, 44 laps to go on this set of hard, so it's still going to be tough for him to manage these till the end. Yeah,
absolutely. Not quite at half race distance yet, so there must be a there will be a sort of calculation going on for Ferrari at what is the best point to come in order to sort of cover this off. Into the pits comes Carlos Sainz, because they now have to balance the risk and reward, really, isn't it? It's the pace of the new tyres versus how long you can keep them alive. Into the pits comes Carlos Sainz. New set of tyres, neat and tidy in the pit stops from Ferrari. And will Sainz get out ahead of Hamilton? I'm not sure he will. So Sainz is going to come out behind Lewis Hamilton, but Hamilton can't be long for this track without pitting again. Fascinating Grand Prix developing at the moment. Max Verstappen is leading it, Leclerc is second, and Carlos Sainz is chasing them down. Now Verstappen got overtaken by Leclerc on lap 12 of the Grand Prix, so Red Bull have taken a different strategy. They still need to pit again, Ferrari don't, so we're in for a very interesting end to the race. It's on the BBC Sport website.
To take avoiding action, you completely squeezed me under brake. You can't move under brake.
Okay, we're going to look at it now.
So Norris having a complaint about Mick Schumacher. Not the most offensive thing I've ever seen in the world. He did sort of move across on him under braking into turn 3, but
here nor there, to be honest. Nice to see Mick get his elbows out, to be honest, and fastest lap of the race for Charles Leclerc.
Hamilton pits in the Mercedes then. Leclerc sets the fastest lap of the race, as you say. He's 5 seconds back from Verstappen. It's a bit slow for Hamilton, that pit stop, I think, as he makes his way out. 4.1 seconds, so 2 seconds off the pace there in that pit stop for Hamilton. He's not really... Well, is he going to be... Where's he going to come out here, Hamilton? Is this going to be behind Ocon? I think it's Stroll and Ocon, isn't it? Yeah, and is he going to lose out here to Ocon? It's going to be very tight. He would have been ahead of Ocon were it not for that slow pit stop, but as it is, he's come out behind the Alpine man. Stroll is still in 4th place, hasn't pitted. Ocon is 5th, and that has cost Hamilton 4th place in the Grand Prix. He's now running a net 5th at the moment, so he needs to get past Ocon on track if he wants to be in 4th.
I wanted to offset myself as much as possible.
And he wanted to offset himself as much as possible, so he obviously didn't want to come into the pits at that point. Russell is in 10th place, by the way. Leclerc is about to ping in another fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Indeed he does, and that's 1.5 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen has managed. Needs to be sensible here, though, Leclerc, doesn't he? Because the race is going to come at the end, surely.
Perhaps, or they could go to a 2-stop, to be honest. If he can make enough difference now on the hards and get back onto terms with Verstappen or even get ahead, then they can also switch to a 2-stop. So Leclerc's actually doing a nice job here, and it's getting a bit fruity between Stroll as he comes in the pits and Hamilton right behind Ocon. The reason he said he wanted to offset himself is because they're struggling a lot with straight line performance, so to overtake in the traffic is tricky for them. So he wants to be able to be out on his own. He believes that they've got good pace in that car, but just not when they're having to fight with other cars.
And I think he should be able to get Ocon here. He backed off coming into the first corner just to stay behind Ocon. He's closing in on the Alpine driver up towards turn 3. Hamilton to the inside, and Hamilton up into 4th place. So Verstappen leads 2.7 seconds ahead of Charles Leclerc. I think you're right here, because if Leclerc overtakes Verstappen on the track, then it's just job done, because Red Bull are snookered. Because if they pit Verstappen, Ferrari can pit again if they want. If they don't want to, they don't have to. And they've got Sainz as well, who is a second quicker than Verstappen on that last lap too. So Ferrari have got a shot here at a 1-2. But there's a long way to go in this Grand Prix, and it's Ferrari, so nothing is done yet. Russell has just made a move to get ahead of Lando Norris for 9th position, but it is Leclerc closing in now on Max Verstappen for the lead of the Grand Prix. 2.3 seconds between them. It was another 1.1 seconds that Leclerc took out of Verstappen on that last lap.
What this is showing is how fast the Ferrari is today. Although it took a bit of time for Charles to get past Max at the beginning of the race, clearly they are faster in this race, and Max is giving it everything out front, especially on that still fresh set of tyres, but can't make the difference.
Andrew Benson has analysis.
I mean, I was just making the same point as Jamie's just made on air to the producer, and I think what's really interesting about that is if the Ferrari is genuinely quicker than the Red Bull, I mean, we're talking about coming back at them, overtaking them potentially twice the way this is looking at the moment. Obviously, Leclerc's got to get past again, but he's now only 1.5 seconds behind Verstappen. This will be the first time that the Ferrari's been definitively the fastest race car for a very, very long time. I can't remember. Maybe Australia was the last time in race 3. Barcelona, possibly, but we couldn't be absolutely sure because Verstappen went off and then the race was over and then Leclerc's engine blew up. And all the other races, the Red Bulls have been definitely quicker. So this could be a potentially decisive moment in the season. I don't want to over-egg it, but...
Over-egg it, come on. Verstappen's 44 points ahead, you can over-egg it. And do we think this is track-specific or Ferrari development-specific?
Well, I wouldn't have said this was a Ferrari track. You know, it's got long straights. The Red Bull's faster in a straight line, or has been. And the Honda engine has always been really good around Austria for technical reasons to do with the way the turbo and compressor work, although that was obviously before this year. So, I mean, obviously, it's only one race out of 22. We can't extrapolate too many conclusions from it, as Leclerc's really, really closing in on Verstappen as they come to the end of this lap 32. But it is a really encouraging sign for Ferrari. And remember, they've had some upgrades on that car recently, including a lower drag rear wing, which they introduced having seen the Red Bull's straight line speed advantage. I
think that lower drag rear wing has really paid dividends this weekend, especially given their lack of straight line speed prior to this weekend. But now he's so much closer to Max. I think it's going to be a lot easier move than the first time he had to make it earlier in the race.
Yeah, looks like it. Here comes Leclerc up the hill towards turn 3. He's got the DRS open and he's going to be trying to overtake Verstappen again for the lead of the race. Verstappen doesn't put up much of a fight. He knows that he can't really respond to Leclerc, and the Ferrari driver is back in front of the Austrian Grand Prix. Now on the run down towards turn 4, Verstappen will get the DRS. Leclerc covers the inside just to try and make sure there'll be no lunge from Verstappen, but he's just got no answer. No answer at all for Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. The Ferrari of Leclerc retakes the lead of the Grand Prix. He hasn't had a podium finish since Miami back in May, and now he is in front and looking incredibly comfortable. Sainz doesn't quite have the same pace.
One lap back, one good, one lap front. The car's so unpredictable, really crazy.
Okay, understood.
So Verstappen saying sometimes he's got front grip, sometimes he doesn't, but whatever, he doesn't have enough grip at all to keep up with Leclerc. So Sainz is going to be the next focus now, isn't he? Can Sainz close in on the back of Verstappen and get ahead? Because that's what Leclerc needs for the championship, because then instead of taking 7 points out of the championship lead, he would be taking 10 points out of Verstappen's championship lead, maybe 11 depending on who gets the fastest lap, which Leclerc has at the moment. Mick Schumacher has just gone past Kevin Magnussen into turn 9. That was
what he was asking for yesterday and apparently didn't get. So yeah, he's going to be happy with some clear air in front of him for the first time this weekend.
Yeah, so Schumacher now 3 seconds back from Esteban Ocon and was 10th quicker on the last lap, so we'll see what he can do. The order is Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Ocon the top 5. Everyone's pitted now, by the way. Schumacher, Magnussen, Norris, Russell and Ricciardo the top 10. And so Russell, it must have been it was Ricciardo that Russell passed earlier on, not Norris. He hasn't got ahead of Norris yet. Albon is just outside of the points in the Williams in 11th place. Gasly's been given a 5-second time penalty for track limits abuse, and Lando Norris has just been given a penalty for track limits as well. So you were saying they were giving him out like there's no tomorrow. That was your phrase, wasn't it, in Formula 2? And we've got 2 drivers with 5-second time penalties for track limits today.
They're ruthless here, and if you watch it back, it's so harsh. I mean, we can't complain. The rules are rules, and it's what everyone wants to see. But yeah, still at the same time, it's going to be interesting this early on in the race. These penalties and these warnings already being handed out.
And if they're not pitting again, then they will just be added to the race time as opposed to serving them in the pit stops. Whereas Russell's 5-second penalty from earlier on for causing a collision he did serve in the pit lane. Fernando Alonso was just squeezed onto the grass by Yuki Tsunoda, but he kept his foot in it and did a little finger wag to Tsunoda, the little left-right no to Yuki Tsunoda on the run down towards turn 4 from Alonso. Loves a bit of a finger wag, doesn't he? What was it, 2003 Monaco Grand Prix, after Ralf Schumacher put him in the wall in the tunnel. He was spinning backwards at 140 miles an hour and still found time to show Ralf Schumacher one of his fingers. Lap 36 of 71, half race distance then in the Austrian Grand Prix. Leclerc leading 4.1 seconds ahead of Verstappen, but Sainz now is 1.3 seconds back from Verstappen. Ferrari absolutely rapid here today, and Sainz is now going to try and attack Max Verstappen. This feels like less of a foregone conclusion, though. Or does it not?
Potentially. I mean, yeah, the car, Ferrari, seemed to be a lot quicker today. But it's weird. You ask the question, is it track specific? Is it, development? What is it? For me, it seems to be tyres. However they switch on the tyres and however they're able to optimise the tyre, all the teams, is how the race ends up going. And we see it with Mercedes a lot, where they just seem to get great tyre management and a better sort of handle over what they have underneath them come the race. Today, it always seems to be going Red Bull's way, but today it seems to be that Ferrari is so much more confident in what they've got. You heard Max complaining on the radio, he doesn't know he's got, it's unpredictable, it's hard for him. He looks like he's coming in the pits now, so yeah, they're really having to try everything to get back at the Ferraris today.
So Verstappen into the pit lane then. Looks like quite a late call because the tyres are only just coming out. It's going to be a new set of hard tyres. Sainz has been given a warning for track limits, so that's something that Sainz needs to keep an eye out for and not get another 5-second time penalty. Neat and tidy pit stop for the Red Bull team. Now, the only question here is going to be Verstappen's pace, because he was pretty quick in the first race, in the first stint when he went onto new tyres. Andrew, you're waving 3 fingers at me. Are you thinking Red Bull are going to do a 3-stop?
Well, if I'm just looking back through my lap chart, he's stopped on lap 13.
Yeah.
And he's come in now on lap 36, so he's only done 23 laps on that set of tyres. And there's how many laps? 34 laps left.
Yeah.
Should be okay, but it's going to be marginal.
Yeah. But I guess he can just go, because now if they're settled for third, basically, it'll just be a case of fully managing it to the Grand Prix, whereas he was going quite aggressive when he put on that new set.
Yeah, but Red Bull aren't the kind of team that's settled for third, are they? They're going to try something, you would think. But, I mean, if they haven't got the pace, they haven't got the pace. And at the moment, it doesn't look like they've got the pace. But, I would say that's an early stop, even on their 2-stop.
The worst case scenario, they still end up third. So it's worth trying something. Hamilton's not got the pace to take Verstappen today. So, I regret sort of... slating Ferrari's tactical decisions at the beginning of the race, because they really have proved us wrong so far.
One swallow does not make a summer, but they're doing a decent job today, Ferrari. Out in the lead of the race. Leclerc leading 6.4 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen is now 20 seconds back from Sainz in third position. Hamilton is fourth. Here's Verstappen's radio.
So Max, at this stage, I recommend you just match Hamilton's lap times. 10-0. 5. Because there are 35 laps to go. Free to push, Max. Free to push.
So that's basically Verstappen being told, just match Hamilton's lap times, will stay ahead of him. He's like, why? All right, push.
But then he said push, but I wonder whether that was a change in strategy within, whether they're thinking about a third stop maybe, or I don't know. He's just, the relationship between him and his engineer this year I find quite funny, because both of them question each other quite a lot, I feel.
Yeah. Lap 39 of 71. Leclerc leading, Sainz second, Verstappen third, Hamilton fourth. Ocon is fifth. Schumacher has managed to break the DRS of Kevin Magnussen and is now well ahead of his teammate in sixth position. Magnussen is seventh, and then it's Magnussen, Norris and Russell who are in a little queue over 7th, 8th and 9th. Daniel Ricciardo is completing the top 10 at the moment. Alex Albon just outside in 11th. Gasly, Vettel, Bottas, Stroll the top 15. Alonso, Zhou, Tsunoda and Latifi the 19 drivers. So things haven't really worked out for Fernando Alonso in this race. He's on a... Well, it depends actually whether we have all of the other midfielders pit again. So whether we will have Ocon stayed out reasonably long, but whether Schumacher, Magnussen, Norris and the gang and Russell will almost certainly have to pit again, because he came in very, very early, on about lap 8 or 9, I would suggest, for George Russell. So we could have, and probably will have, more pit stops coming in the mid-pack. Here comes the attack from Norris. No, he's too far back from Kevin Magnussen on the run down into turn 4, and Norris has to sit in that 8th place still. As we've discussed, well, yesterday, a lot of straight line speed in the Haas, and Norris unable to do anything about it just yet. So Verstappen was told to do a 10.0, then he was told you're free to push, and he took 0.8 of a second out of the Ferraris.
Yeah, I feel better on this time.
That's good.
Carlos Sainz feels better on this tyre, and Sebastian Vettel is in the gravel, and then comes and rolls back onto the track. That's a bit of an odd one. Down at turn 4, rolls the car back onto the circuit, does a little U-ey and gets back going again. Who was he battling with? He was battling with Pierre Gasly. So I think Vettel and Gasly have had a moment coming into turn 4. Vettel gets back on his way, only just sort of rolls back onto the track in front of Charles Leclerc. Vettel was given a suspended £21,000 fine yesterday for storming out of the driver's briefing on Friday night because of I just got tagged, didn't he, by it's the classic turn 4 manoeuvre.
He has to give up that corner. I had the nose ahead. What is wrong with these people?
Was much more on Gasly than the Russell incident, and if George got 5 seconds, I would imagine that would be a little bit more. And Gasly already has the 5-second penalty, so race is not going so well for him today.
No, so that'll be up to 10 seconds for Gasly, presumably, if the stewards opt to give him a penalty. And Alonso has just got ahead of Stroll and up into 13th place. So Fernando Alonso making a bit of progress now, with those around potentially having to pit again. Well, let's cover off that Vettel story, actually, because it was quite interesting, and Andrew Benson will cover it off for us.
Yeah, so they were in the drivers' briefing on Friday evening. They were discussing the decisions made by the stewards during the British Grand Prix, particularly the incident after the restart following the safety car at the end of the race, where Perez cut the Vale chicane and then Leclerc ran wide, looking like he was trying to avoid what he thought might be Perez pushing him off anyway. Then Perez passed Hamilton, and a lot of the drivers thought that some of those incidents deserved a penalty, and they wanted to discuss it with the race director. Vettel lost his rag, basically, in the meeting, and I'm told he basically said, I've been having these discussions for 15 years and I'm sick of it, or words to that effect, and walked out. So apparently he went back to Niels Wittig, the race director, and apologised, and they had a chat about that issue and other things which the FIA said was constructive in their ruling on it. But if he does that again, he's going to have to pay £21,000, which I don't think is going to make too much of a dent in Sebastian Vettel's bank account. Gasly is given a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision. Norris has just got ahead of Kevin Magnussen, and did Magnussen then pit? Yes, he did. So Norris now up into 7th place. As I say, 5-second time penalty for Gasly. I just think the incidents are different. The Russell one was a racing incident. That is, this one was Vettel was ahead of Gasly, and Gasly understeered into him, but I don't seem to. Anyway, I can't be bothered to get into an argument about that. Lap 42 of 71, into the pits comes Magnussen, new set of hard tyres, bit of a slow stop, loses about half a second to a second, and he's going to come out behind Russell here, interestingly enough. So George Russell is pitted for his second stop and come out ahead of Magnussen. So once the rest of the midfield pit, that could be a net 6th place for George Russell. Hamilton's just been given a black and white flag for track limits. Russell gets ahead of Joe. Now he's come out on fresher tyres, and Sainz is getting all bogged down in a lot of this battling that's going on, and he now makes his way past Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. But this is not working out too badly in the end for Russell. I thought he was kind of a bit adrift, but actually he's just pitted, and if those around pit soon, he could be in a net 6th position potentially. Well, maybe not quite 6th, because Schumacher had got ahead of Magnussen, hadn't he? And so had Norris, but he's going to be in that mix for 6th, 7th, 8th, which is obviously not great, having started in 4th place, but damage limitation wise he's making some progress at least.
Definitely damage limitation, especially the 5-second penalty and the front wing change. So yeah, if he can sort of keep that pace up, that would be good. It does look like everyone is going to have to box again. No one's going to do the one-stop as we see the Vettel Gasly incident again, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he gave him a lot of room there. Not Sebastian's fault. The only thing I do query a bit is him rolling back onto the track. I'm not too sure about the safety of that. He reversed or rolled back onto the track from the gravel and came majority of the way across, so that could have been a bit nasty if anyone didn't see him.
No, that was a bit of an odd move that from
I think he cost Charles Leclerc nearly 2 seconds by doing that.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll see whether the stewards get interested in that. Leclerc is leading the Grand Prix in Austria. He is 4.7 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz. It's a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment, which they have not highest they did have. They had it in Bahrain. The opening race of the season was a 1-2. That's their only 1-2 of the season. Red Bull have had 3 1-2s in Imola, Spain and Baku, but still a long way to go in this Grand Prix. Verstappen, Norris pits now from 7th place. So into the pits comes the the McLaren. He's having to serve his 5-second time penalty, of course. So Russell might come out ahead of Norris because of that 5-second time penalty, and indeed he does. So Russell is now ahead of Norris on track. The Haas of Magnussen is back ahead of Norris also.
Schumacher just coming out the pits as well.
Yeah, and Schumacher and Russell are side by side, and that's for position. And Russell gets ahead, and then he tries to get ahead of Lance Stroll as well. And that could be Schumacher's opportunity to try and get back at him as they come through the right-hander of turn 3. Stroll covers the inside. Now, Stroll, if he is on a full one-stopper, because I think Stroll stayed out quite late, didn't he? I'm pretty sure Stroll stayed out a long time, so he might be on a one-stop, and he is fighting George Russell pretty hard here as they come now into 6 and 7. Turn 7, Russell has the inside, and he gets the job done. Nicely done from Russell, and that will give him a bit of breathing space over Schumacher. Ocon is in the pits now, so where's Ocon going to come out and Ricciardo going to come out with regards to George Russell? Into the final corner comes the British driver in the Mercedes. Up the hill now towards turn 1. Schumacher is trying to get ahead of Stroll. Alonso now is up into 6th place, and Russell comes out ahead of Daniel Ricciardo.
But behind Ocon.
But so behind Ocon.
Battle with Stroll, I think, really hurt him a little bit. But on now hot tyres, and he seems to have good pace, it will be interesting to see if he can get back up fast.
Yeah, he's 2.7 seconds back from Esteban Ocon. Stroll is sending it back to get past Mick Schumacher as they come into turn 3, and he does get back ahead. So Stroll up into 8th place, Schumacher back down to 9th as they come running down towards turn 4. Schumacher goes to the outside of Stroll. Stroll really squeezes him a lot coming into turn 4 and keeps the place, but again Schumacher gets the better drive out coming through the right-hander, but Schumacher will be on the outside for 6, and nothing he can do there. Can't quite pull the George Russell switch back into 7, but here's Hamilton's radio.
Now we had track limits turn 10. That's a black and white flag now.
That's BS, I didn't know why.
Hey firm, we'll have a look, Lewis.
Other people getting it, there's loads of people going off.
Hey firm, we're seeing a couple of people already with penalties and lots of warnings.
So that's Hamilton saying, well, I'm not going off, but if I am, everyone is. So, and the team saying, well, yeah, you're right. The Sainz is losing a bit of time here in the melee, and we're just getting a replay of one of Hamilton's run wides, and he is going off the white line. Yeah,
but it's so marginal.
Yeah.
I mean, rules are rules, but
no, Chadwick. For your whole racing career, all you would have said is,
I just want consistency. just say it's the white line,
yeah.
And then everyone knows.
It's so true. I'm such a... Yeah, I contradict myself. But at the same time, I just don't want this race to be dictated by penalties. It won't be, but yeah, it's just frustrating when you see it like that.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Lap 47 of 71, Leclerc leading the way. So Hamilton's in 4th, Alonso is in 5th. Can he hold on those... He started on the mediums, actually, didn't he, Alonso? So he didn't he? He's on the hards now. So he started on his hard, medium, hard, we think, for Alonso, but he's on the hards now. So that's what I'm just wondering about. Anyway, we'll keep an eye on Alonso, whether he needs to pit again on lap 48 of 71. Stroll and Schumacher and Magnussen now fighting very hard over 8th position. The Aston Martin ahead of the 2 Haas cars. This should be Schumacher's opportunity to get past fairly straightforwardly. Goes to the outside, coming up into turn 3, does get ahead of Stroll, and Magnussen comes through too. So Stroll loses a couple of places now and drops down into 10th position, Lance Stroll, after losing those 2 spots, and he can't quite get back at Magnussen coming down into turn 4. So Leclerc leads, Sainz second, Verstappen third. Verstappen's pace is about 7/10 a lap quicker than the Ferraris, but he's going to have his work cut out to catch them and pass them. Hamilton 4th in the Mercedes, and then it is Alonso 5th, Ocon 6th, Russell 7th, Schumacher 8th, Magnussen 9th, and Stroll completing the top 10. And then Lando Norris now outside of the points. Joe has just made his second pit stop, but Leclerc leads as he comes across the line. Norris is 11th, Ricciardo 12th, Albon is 13th, 14th is Bottas, 15th is Gasly, and then it is Tsunoda, Vettel, Joe and Latifi. The 19 drivers still running. Sergio Perez retiring from the Grand Prix. Whether that was an actual problem or whether they're just trying to keep the engine mileage, we'll wait and see. Ocon is all over the back of Leclerc here. He's lapping at a similar pace. In fact, Leclerc's pace is not particularly quick. Ocon is actually going to unlap himself here from Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. So it's a bit of an interesting one. Ocon is 6th, a long way off the lead and everything, and the pace of Leclerc is fine, but I think the Ferraris and the Red Bull of Verstappen are all just kind of managing their tyres at the moment, I suppose. Andrew Benson?
Well, the question is, do the Ferraris stop again? They're on the optimum, what was predicted before the race as a one-stop strategy. They stopped at the beginning of the pit stop window to switch onto the hards, but they were in the window of the predictions.
Box, Leclerc.
Here we are, they do stop again.
So Charles Leclerc into the pit lane then. So another pit stop incoming here for the Ferrari team. And this is going to give Verstappen the lead of the race back again. So it's not all done and dusted as it looked like it might be. Max Verstappen into the final couple of corners. Leclerc makes his way out, a 2.4 second pit stop, very neat and tidy, and Verstappen though comes back out in the lead of the race.
The other thing to clear up, Jack,
Carlos Sainz is currently leading this race. He's 13 seconds ahead of Verstappen, but Charles Leclerc was in the lead until about 20 seconds ago when he came in and made his second pit stop. So if Leclerc wants to win this Grand Prix and take his first win since Australia all the way back in April, he has got to overtake Verstappen on the track. We've got 22 laps to go here on the BBC Sport website. Because they're doing Wimbledon on 5 Live, I feel like I have to talk a little bit quieter when I do the updates into 5 Live, that I don't want to come in like, yeah, when they're like busy on centre court. But what else is there to keep an eye out for, Andrew?
Well,
Sorry for interrupting you.
You were asking about Fernando Alonso earlier. The screens are showing that he's done one stop and he's on the hard tyre.
Yeah.
If that's correct, he needs to stop again.
Yeah.
Because he started on the hards.
That's what I thought. Yeah. That's what was confusing me. But so it looks like the one stop is basically out of the window for everybody. New set of hard tyres for Carlos Sainz. So both Ferraris have now pitted. Both will need to do what they did previously and overtake Max Verstappen, which is seemingly doable because of the offset that Red Bull sort of created almost as they come out onto the start-finish straight. There's a lot of traffic as well coming up for Verstappen. So Verstappen leads the race in Austria. Nobody has any more pit stops to make in terms of Verstappen, Leclerc and Sainz, but now it will be the fight for the win. Does Verstappen have any chance here of holding off the Ferraris?
He's going to be a bit of a sitting duck. I mean, he can hope and pray there might be a safety car and he can get another little cheap pit stop in, but on pace, Ferraris are definitely a lot quicker today.
Here's Russell's radio.
How is so slow? I didn't really feel right. Don't know if we've got any more damage or not.
So Russell wondering if he has more damage than than just the front wing that they changed.
It's a 14-lap tyre offset.
Right.
Remember at Silverstone we saw a 12-lap. Okay, it was hard against softs with Leclerc on old tyres and the rest of them on new, but that gives you an idea of the sort of advantage the Ferraris are going to have.
Nicholas Latifi has retired from the race in the Williams. Max Verstappen is coming up towards turn 1. Hamilton is coming into the pits now from 4th position, but he's got pretty much a free pit stop over Fernando Alonso in 5th, so that'll be fairly straightforward for the Mercedes team. Leclerc on that last lap was 1.2 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. As Verstappen comes up behind a bit of traffic, surely Leclerc will be coming through soon. Out of the pits goes Hamilton. Andrew, did Red Bull sort of scupper themselves by pitting Verstappen straight away? Because Verstappen got ahead in the early stages, but it was very difficult. Leclerc got ahead in the early stages, but it was very difficult for Leclerc to do so, and they were still very much in a race, whereas going for this offset has kind of wiped out any advantage.
Well, Leclerc's just coming right up onto the back of Max Verstappen right now as they come to the end of this lap 52, Jack. But so I'm sure you're about to take over from me in a second.
All right, well, have a think about that as they come through the final corner. You know the answer.
Yeah, but do you want to do you want to commentate this through?
Okay,
and then we'll come back to it. Yeah,
we'll do. Thanks. Here we go up towards turn 1. The Ferrari of Leclerc 0.3 of a second behind. This is going to be the 3rd time Leclerc will overtake Verstappen for the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. He's so close. He's just 0.3 back as they come up the hill now towards the right-hander of turn 3. A little bit of a weave around and a dummy, and Leclerc doesn't get the move done here. Verstappen tries to park it on the apex, but actually Leclerc saw that coming, and it's just a drive-by on the exit of the corner. Verstappen has got the DRS now coming back down in towards turn 4. We saw him do an amazing round the outside move at turn 4 a few years ago, Verstappen, but not this time around. Leclerc gets the move done. Verstappen tried to be smart on the apex, but it didn't quite work out.
He did, but he has no answer for it. I think the pace is quite a bit different today. So, yeah, nice to see some good racing. It's the 3rd time we've seen the pass.
Oh, what a joke that traction is.
I mean, he is on brand new tyres.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why. But, yeah, still no answer for the Red Bull today. And I don't think it helps that there's only one Red Bull against the 2 Ferraris. But to be honest, even without strategy, I think they just had the overall pace today.
Andrew Benson?
Yeah, and on the strategy, Jack, I think you've got to remember that at the time they made that early pit stop with Verstappen, they didn't know what they didn't know. You know, they knew that they'd been struggling to hold the Ferraris off, but they didn't know what we've seen in the subsequent 40 laps, that the Ferrari's just definitively quicker. So they're thinking, well, you know, the optimum strategy is down on paper as a 1-stop. Let's try something else. Let's see if we can, beat them with a 2-stop. Obviously, as the race has developed, it's become apparent that they haven't been able to beat them on a 2-stop, and Ferrari have just done a more optimum 2-stop than Red Bull did. But it just looks at the moment to me, and I think to Jamie as well from what she's been saying, that the Ferrari is just definitively quicker. And as I was saying earlier, I think that's quite a significant moment in the season.
Yeah, it's just sort of the pace offset seems a bit more dramatic because of the tyre offset that's sort of happening at the same time. Here comes George Russell trying to pass Fernando Alonso up into the right-hander of turn 1. Not able to do it just yet. I don't quite know what's happened with Pierre Gasly. He was under investigation for not having served his time penalty, but now they've decided no further action. So maybe they found out he did serve his time penalty or something, I don't know. But Russell is now ahead of Ocon and up into 5th place. So the Mercedes are running 4th and 5th. And I would say Russell doesn't have to stop again, I don't think. So he should be able to consolidate that. Alonso running in... that was Alonso that Russell was passing. My apologies. So Russell got ahead of Alonso and up into 6th place. And now he's 1.7 seconds back from Ocon. So that's got to be the next attack for Russell. Then he will be in 5th position. But we still think Alonso has to pit again because he is in 7th place, and there's not really much of a gap behind for Alonso to come out into. So I think he'd be dropping out the points.
What's the reason we went to the side?
So currently looking at an opportunity end of the race.
So Hamilton asking, why am I on the mediums, basically? And they're looking at an opportunity at the end of the race. So I don't know if they're thinking if we get a late race safety car, or for some reason and then you'll be on the mediums and everyone around you'll be on the hards, potentially.
Potentially, as Sainz does the fastest lap. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that, because by the time he gets to the end of the race, he's going to really have to looked after those tyres a lot. So maybe they're thinking a safety car and to go on to another soft or something. I'm not too sure.
Sainz sets the fastest lap of the race, as you say, 1.3 seconds back from Max Verstappen, closing in as they come down the hill in towards turn 4. Now, on that last lap, Sainz was 1.5 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. Can the Ferrari driver get back up into second place? Verstappen, so successful at the Red Bull Ring over the last couple of years, dominant really, but not turning out that way today. He's 4 seconds back now from Charles Leclerc, who even after getting ahead of Verstappen is still pushing, actually. Leclerc, he did a 1 minute 9.2 on that last lap, which was 1 second quicker than Verstappen managed, and he's also almost doing a personal best on this lap. And actually, Sainz has got the fastest lap. 15 laps to go. Sainz has the fastest lap, and Leclerc can't quite take him off him on that lap by 0.04 of a second, 0.03 of a second. So it's going to be a bit frustrating for Leclerc. I think if Sainz ends up with the point for fastest lap, it's not going to, in the grand scheme of things that haven't gone right for Leclerc's points tally over the course of the season, I don't think Sainz getting a fastest lap will be up there, but still a little thing of note. Sainz now right behind Verstappen as he comes down the hill towards turn 4. And he backs off and pulls over, and there's smoke out the back of the Ferrari engine of Carlos Sainz. Engine blow for Carlos Sainz. Just when things are looking good for Ferrari. Just when it looks like they're going to wrap up at 1-2. Sainz is out.
No.
Flames licking from the rear of that Ferrari car.
Be a full safety car.
Safety car may well be deployed. He's on the exit of turn 4.
Out of that car.
Well, the thing is, he can't get out because if he takes off, if he gets out, his foot comes off the brake and the car rolls back down the hill.
He really needs to get out.
Yeah, and he's asking drivers, the marshals, to come and put the chocks in, and I think they're going to just get Carlos Sainz out in time. He's out of the Grand Prix. The safety car not deployed yet, but the race is over. Sainz is out of the car now. Sainz is out of the car. The fire extinguishers are going on the car. That was a scary couple of moments there for Carlos Sainz, because the choice was stay in the car with the brake on and the car's on fire, or get out and the car rolls back down the hill. Virtual safety car is now deployed as Carlos Sainz sits with his feet in the grass of the Styrian Mountains, with his arms on his knees, looking back out over his burning Ferrari. And on lap 58 of 71, just as Sainz was about to get up into second place, the Ferrari has let him down.
Heartbreak. And does that leave cause for concern for Leclerc out front, I think?
I don't think it'll make Ferrari feel more comfortable, will it?
No.
Leclerc's on a much fresher engine than Sainz, remember, because of the failures that he had earlier. But obviously what this does do is underline just how fragile that Ferrari engine
Leclerc
is.
in the pits.
Leclerc in the pits then, under the virtual safety car. Verstappen follows him in. So this will be interesting, because if the full safety car gets deployed, then they'll be on very equal tyres at the safety car restart, both going onto a set of the mediums. Leclerc emerges, still in the lead of the race, with Verstappen in second place. They've both taken that free pit stop. Leclerc leading, Verstappen second. Hamilton might be set for his third podium in a row, having starting the Grand Prix in 8th on the grid. Still only a virtual safety car. Sainz has now taken his helmet off and just has his lips pursed as he looks at the track. And it's still only a virtual safety car. So everybody has to basically slow down and not exactly run at a speed limit, but for all intents and purposes run at a speed limit. And the order is Leclerc, Verstappen, Hamilton, Ocon, Russell, Schumacher, Magnussen, Norris, Alonso, Ricciardo, the top 10. And then outside the top 10, Albon, Bottas, Gasly, Stroll, Zhou, Tsunoda and Vettel. The 17 drivers still going. Alonso took his pit stop behind the virtual safety car. So 9th place now for Alonso, which is good news for him. And he's going to be on fresh tyres. So he's going to be on the attack here in the closing laps, I think, Fernando Alonso, which will be quite fun. It was looking as though he was going to have no chance of getting into the points, but it looks like he may do here. Still, the virtual safety car is deployed rather than the full safety car. We're just going to get a look at the recovery as we come down with Hamilton up towards the right-hander, and it's pretty clear now. So it's in fact, the virtual safety car is ending. So the racing get back underway.
They've done well to do that just under a virtual safety car, to be honest. I thought that was going to be a full safety car. And good job by Ferrari as well to react to that, because it could have been a bit like Abu Dhabi with Hamilton and Verstappen all over again, with Verstappen right behind on a brand new set of tyres.
Yeah, that engine was blowing up, wasn't it? It was blowing out through the sort of engine cover as Sainz came to a halt. Remarkable stuff, and the Ferrari team couldn't believe it. And Sainz rolling back down the hill, asking, and the marshals were pretty quick on the scene and brought some chocks with them, which was pretty good thinking. Managed to whack a chock under the front right wheel, and as Sainz dived out of the car. But the race is back underway. Charles Leclerc is in the lead of the Austrian Grand Prix. He has got new tyres on, as has Max Verstappen behind him in second place. The gap between them is only about a couple of seconds, I think, here. Well, no, a bit more than that, maybe 4 seconds. 4.1 seconds between Leclerc and Verstappen. And Verstappen has just set the fastest middle sector of anyone in the race so far. 4 seconds between them across the line, 11 laps to go. So if Verstappen wants to catch Leclerc, he's going to need to do about 0.4 of a second a lap, broadly speaking, to get up to the back of Leclerc by the time they get to the end of the race.
Throttle pedal for the pit stop.
Tommy will come back to you.
No.
I can't even imagine if this one goes from Ferrari as well. But look, we're not there yet. We've got 11 laps to go, and Leclerc is leading the Grand Prix. He is on the same age tyre as Max Verstappen. He does have track position.
Although Verstappen's taken a second out of him.
Yeah, it's true. It's down to 3.8 seconds now. The gap between them, Verstappen 0.2 quicker than Leclerc in the first sector alone. Hamilton is running in third. Ocon is fourth, and he's only just ahead of George Russell as they are fighting over fourth and fifth positions. Leclerc sets the fastest middle sector of the race, and now Verstappen sets the fastest middle sector of the race. These two are going to be on it for the last 10 laps or so. Russell and Ocon, meanwhile, are coming through the middle sector. They're right together, and can Russell get Esteban Ocon as they come down through turn 3? Yes, he can. Russell gets ahead of Ocon into turn 3, and now running together down towards turn 4. Ocon tries to fight back but can't get it done. Russell holds the place.
And from data, everything is fine on the throttle pedal.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Copy.
So Leclerc saying everything's okay now, but on the last lap he lost 0.2 of a second to Max Verstappen. The gap down to 3.7 seconds. It's not huge gains here from Verstappen, but gains nevertheless. And this is kind of what we're just going to see what happens to Russell. He went to the outside of Esteban Ocon into turn 3, and then just got the drive out and the DRS, and it was a straightforward overtake. So Russell up into fourth place. Mercedes running third and fourth, despite both being in the wars, to be perfectly honest with you. Hamilton starting 8th on the grid, Russell having a collision, a front wing change, a 5-second time penalty in the pits, and he's managed to get back up into fourth place. Across the line comes Charles Leclerc. He sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but then Verstappen goes quicker by 0.3 of a second. The gap comes down to 3.4 seconds between Leclerc and Verstappen. I don't think it's going to be enough, but it's going to be quite fun.
It's not maybe enough, but Verstappen's clearly a lot happier on this medium tyre, and that's as soon as he's happy and he's got the bit between his teeth, I guess, chasing Leclerc down, I think it could get tasty at the end of this race.
Norris goes to the outside of Magnussen and gets up into 7th position. So Lando Norris now ahead of Kevin Magnussen and up into 7th place in the McLaren. So McLaren having a much better day today. They qualified abysmally. Race yesterday was sort of all right, but it felt sort of circumstantial more than anything. But now they're running in 7th and 9th, and Alex Albon is looking in a good place. He's in 10th at the moment, looking to get 1 point for the Williams team, but he has Valtteri Bottas right behind him. Bottas was 1.4 seconds quicker on the last lap, so it might not be a point for Alex Albon. He's going to have his work cut out if he wants to keep that. Here they come across the line again, the race leaders. Leclerc comes through now and does a 1 minute 7.8. Verstappen comes through and does a 1 minute 7.9. So the gap extends by a tenth of a second on that last lap. Verstappen not looking like he quite has the pace, but what he is getting is kind of another free 3 points in the championship, because Sainz is not there to finish second for Ferrari. In fact, he's trudging back down the paddock now, just walking past the Alfa Romeo and Williams motorhomes at the far end of the paddock, and it is Alfa Romeo and Williams who are battling over that final points-paying position, with Bottas trying to close in on Alex Albon in the fight over 10th position. And despite being 7/10 of a second behind on that last lap, wasn't really able to close in much. Bottas.
What's happening? What's happening with the throttle?
Oh, no.
Well, Leclerc saying what's happening with the throttle. The team saying we'll come back to you. The gap is still there at 3.5 seconds. Here comes Albon and Bottas into the final couple of corners at turns 9 and 10. The battle over the final points-paying position. Bottas is very close at the moment.
Leclerc reporting potentially some issues with throttle ahead. Keep the pressure on for now.
Verstappen being told keep the pressure on. Bottas is keeping the pressure on Alex Albon coming into the first corner. The Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas is right there as they come out onto the run up towards turn 3. DRS open for Bottas. Albon covers the inside line, bouncing up and down as he gets onto the brakes. Bottas goes to the outside. Albon keeps it on the inside, gets very nicely done from Albon, really put his car in a great position. Bottas is going to have the DRS now though, goes to the outside on the run down towards turn 4. Can he get it done on the brakes, or will Albon still be there? He gets it done. So Bottas makes the move round the outside of Albon, and from the pit lane, Bottas is up into 10th place and the final points position. Albon did all he could there, I think.
He did, and I'm not entirely sure how he ended up there, because I'm pretty sure before the virtual safety car he was 13th, 14th. Yeah, not with a huge amount of pace.
So sometimes the throttle gets stuck coming off. So try to remove it as much as you can. Remove the foot.
So sometimes Leclerc's throttle gets stuck when he comes off the throttle. So try and take your foot off the throttle. So almost like, I guess they're suggesting he's kind of keeping his foot on the throttle a little bit.
I think more when he comes off the throttle pedal doesn't immediately return to 0%, so maybe there's a bit of a weird feeling. Drivers are hypersensitive to things like that. If the steering wheel's slightly out, anything like that, you become very aware of, especially when you're leading a race with Max Verstappen only 3.5 seconds behind you. But at the same time, if he can manage it, he's still got the gap up 3.5 seconds. He should be okay.
So I think with Albon, Alonso pitted, didn't he? And Stroll pitted behind the virtual safety car. And I think that's what gave Albon those. And of course, Sainz retired. So I think it was a sort of mixture of those that gave him those places. Lance Stroll has just made an overtake on Pierre Gasly and got up into 13th position around the outside of turn 4. And Charles Leclerc leading the Grand Prix with 5 laps to go. 3.1 seconds ahead of Max Verstappen.
You cannot imagine what I'm doing with the pedal. It's a mess.
So sometimes it's not coming back to 0%.
Wow, I can feel it, mate.
So exactly what Jamie Chadwick just said. It's not coming back to 0% when he's coming off the throttle. Verstappen just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. No, he didn't, but he went quicker than Charles Leclerc by 0.4 of a second on that last lap. 5 laps to go. It's going to need to be more than that. And you can see it actually on the data. Really interesting. You can see it on the data when that we get up on the monitors, that when Leclerc comes off the throttle, it's still holding there and kind of pushing him around. This is tricky to drive with.
He's doing unbelievably well to manage it, but you can see he's just missed the apex a little bit there. He's going to struggle with this, I think, for the rest of the race. He can hang on maybe, but it's going to be hard work for these last 4 laps.
Into the final couple of corners comes Charles Leclerc. 4 laps to go now as they come across the line and down the start-finish straight. On that last lap, Verstappen chips away by 0.4. Charles Leclerc's leading this race. It was looking to be a Ferrari 1-2, but Carlos Sainz's engine blew up just as he was about to overtake Max Verstappen and move into second position. So another Ferrari reliability problem, and they've got another one at the moment because Charles Leclerc is having problems with his throttle. When he's taking his foot off the throttle, it's still sticking on a little bit, and he's losing a lot of ground to Max Verstappen. He's 2.7 seconds ahead, and there's only 3.5 laps to go. He should be able to hold on. Into turn 6, and now into turn 7. He is managing this kind of absolutely fine at the moment. He's not losing a huge amount of time. Alonso has just got ahead of Alex Albon now, coming up into turn 3. Joe's just got ahead of Pierre Gasly, but Verstappen isn't making enough inroads for this to be huge as he comes across the line now, and 2 to go. 3 to go, sorry.
Some drivers do actually keep a little bit of throttle on under braking to help rear locking and help the stability of the car. Unlikely he's doing that intentionally at this phase of the race, but some drivers do it, and it can also help with a little bit of fuel load as well. So, yeah, we'll see.
He's doing all right at the moment, Charles Leclerc, with less than 3 laps to go. Here's his radio.
The downshifts are received also.
Yes, it's because of the throttle pedal.
So he can't get the downshifts in. Sometimes he's flicking the pedal, I guess, and the car's like, well, no, you're still on the throttle. I'm not going to downshift, you idiot.
It will, yeah, exactly. The gearbox is effectively overriding what he's asking for, and that is because there's a bit of throttle on. Quite common, but again, just something that he's really going to not be happy about in this phase of the race. But he's somehow gapping Verstappen at this point. Yeah, the gap has actually gone up. It's now 3 seconds between Leclerc and Verstappen with 2 laps to go.
So difficult.
And that's the slowest corner on the circuit, where you really don't need any throttle at all.
Exactly, and you've got sort of 6 downshifts to ask the car for down there.
Well, let's listen to him as he comes up now in towards turn 3. We'll see how neat and tidy the downshifts are. In theory, he should just kind of fire down through them. Here he comes. It wasn't too bad, actually, was it?
You can hear the chattering, though.
Yeah.
You can hear it's not smooth, particularly in the first 2 or 3 that he's asking for. So it's not what he wants, but he's able to maintain it, and he's lucky this isn't any earlier in the Grand Prix. Yeah, and he's on the penultimate lap of the race now. Charles Leclerc leading ahead of Max Verstappen. Hamilton is 3rd, Russell is 4th. Another big points day for Mercedes. Ocon is 5th for what must be one of his best results of the season so far. Yes, 6th in Canada was Ocon's best, and Saudi was Ocon's best result of the season so far. So 5th, Mick Schumacher, I think, is going to be on for his best ever Formula 1 finish. Got points last time out at Silverstone for the first time, and now he's going to pick up a 6th place. So a real great run of form for Mick Schumacher. But the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc comes across the line now to start the final lap of the Grand Prix. The gap before this race was 44 points. It's going to come down only to 37. It's still going to be a big margin that Verstappen has, but Ferrari have shown pace for the first real time in a while in the race, and Verstappen has got the gap down now to 2 seconds starting the final lap. But surely that's not going to be enough as long as Leclerc's Ferrari holds together as he comes down the hill in towards turn 4. Leclerc leading, Verstappen 2nd, Hamilton 3rd, Russell 4th. And Leclerc, bit of a correction as he comes into turn 4. Still has that 2-second margin over Verstappen. He really made his Grand Prix, did Charles Leclerc, in the early stages when he sent a brilliant move to the inside of Verstappen down into the 4th corner. And this is going to be his first win since since Australia, which was much earlier on in this season. It was April, the start of April, the last time Charles Leclerc won a Grand Prix. Now the Ferrari driver comes out of the final corner, and at the Red Bull Ring, it's Ferrari who win, and Charles Leclerc wins for the first time since April. Only chipped 7 points away, actually 6 points away, and Max Verstappen's championship lead. But it shows that Ferrari can win a Grand Prix if they get their car to the end of the race. Sainz retiring with a few laps to go, but Leclerc does take the win. Max Verstappen finished with the fastest lap, so that's why it's only 6 points that Leclerc chips away, so the gap will be 38 points. Still Verstappen's advantage at the top of the championship. This will move Leclerc up into the 2nd in the standings, won't it? He'll now be ahead of Sergio Perez, so he is now 2nd in the championship, Charles Leclerc.
as Hamilton comes out across the line for the third race in a row. Hamilton finishes in third place. A smile, a small smile on the face of Toto Wolff as he applauds his silver arrows home, because Russell finishes in fourth position. Ocon, best result of the season, in fifth. Schumacher, best result of his career, in sixth. Norris, Magnussen, Ricciardo and Alonso the top 10. Alonso got ahead of Bottas on the final lap of the race to score the final points paying position. Bottas 11th, Albon 12th.
And P1!
Yes, sir! Yes! Oh, yes, come on! Oh my God! I was scared. I was really scared. Yes!
Amazing job. No words.
That huge exhale from Leclerc, that's relief not only from this Grand Prix, but from the last 5 races.
He deserves that big time. And also so much confidence for the team. They were so fast today. Okay, reliability wasn't there, actually, on both sides of the garage, but still, the pace was good throughout, and Verstappen had no answer.
Good effort, Max. P2, it's good of all the points, mate.
Yeah, tricky race out, but still second is better than third, which it was looking like. So
yeah, good effort, mate. Just need to understand, obviously, the dig in the middle of the race there, but your pace at the end was very strong.
Yeah, that's the... Whenever they were on the same tyre, same age tyre, they looked really tight on pace, Leclerc and Verstappen. But as soon as they had that sort of offset at those 2 stops in the middle, then he just had nothing.
It's a weird one, not one I've seen, or weakness I've seen in Red Bull this year so far. So
yeah,
interesting. Ferrari have overcome that. And I think also what will give Ferrari confidence is Charles overtook Max 3 times today.
Yeah.
And just that every time, just hammering it home today that he was quicker and asserted his authority in the race. That I think's an important statement now for the rest of the season.
Charles Leclerc returns to Parc Fermé, wraps his arms around the halo and hauls himself out of the car. It'll be frustration for Ferrari with Sainz's retirement, of course. Concern for Ferrari as well, but predominantly relief and delight as Leclerc climbs out of the car, punches the air with his fist and sprints over to his mechanics and dives into them. Hugs all around, the fences holding them back nearly go down. And celebrations with everyone at the team, seemingly, for Charles Leclerc. Max Verstappen, less celebrations from him as he walks over to get weighed. Those are the shouts of the Ferrari team, because he was very good today. There's no doubt about that. He was very, very good today, Charles Leclerc. He obviously won the Grand Prix with the assistance of the Ferrari seemingly being the quickest car, but he had to make the move on one of the most difficult drivers to make a move on. And in fact, we were asking earlier this season, I think Palmer was asking on the preview podcast, has Verstappen been overtaken this season permanently? And we couldn't really think of an occasion. He has now on a few occasions. High fives with Leclerc and Coulthard. High fives with Leclerc and Verstappen. They're speaking to Coulthard now.
Not the result today that you would have hoped for, but a nice little battle there with Charles towards the end. Talk us through the race, put us in the cockpit. You never seemed as comfortable with the balance with heavy fuel.
yeah, it was a tricky day. Immediately seemed like we were struggling quite a bit with the tires, and basically that continued on every single compound. So yeah, too much degradation to really attack Charles, especially. But nevertheless, still, second place is a good result for us on a difficult day.
Now you're an amazing home support here. The orange, the sea of smoke on the first lap was pretty impressive. Not too distracting.
No, it was nice. I mean, it's a great color anyway, so I don't mind to drive through it. But it's great to see so many fans coming here to Austria. Of course, unfortunately, I couldn't give them a win today, but I think second is still a decent result.
Very respectful racing between you and Charles, just standing here to your left. The battle will continue all season.
Yeah, of course, like it has been already the whole year, so I think that's great to see.
Okay, Max, congratulations on the podium result. So, our race winner, welcome back, Charles Leclerc. You had to fight for that one. That was a real racing victory and some fantastic wheel-to-wheel action with Max Verstappen.
Yeah, it was a really good race. I mean, the pace was there. At the beginning, we had some good fight with Max, and the end was incredibly difficult. I had this problem with the throttle, and it would get stuck at 20 or 30% throttle in the low speed, so it was very tricky, but we managed to make it stick until the end, and I'm so happy.
No, it was a fantastic race, fantastic victory. Congratulations for that. We saw your teammate had some reliability issues. Was that in your mind when you started to experience those throttle issues towards the end?
Yeah, weirdly, it was more or less at the same time. So, of course, I had it in my mind. I knew it was not a problem with the engine because it was really the pedal that was feeling weird. First at pickup, and then at the end, it would not come back to zero. But, yeah, luckily, it went until the end of the race.
You needed this one. You feel this will now put you back on track for this championship battle?
I definitely needed that one. I mean, the last 5 races have been incredibly difficult for myself, but also for the team, obviously. And to finally show that we've got the pace in the car and that we can do it is incredible. So, yeah, we need to push until the end.
Yeah, well, it was a great Grand Prix. Congratulations on the victory. And moving on to Mr. Consistent for another podium result. Lewis, maybe not as close as you were a week ago at Silverstone, but that was still an important result today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And what an incredible crowd we've had here this weekend. Definitely wasn't expecting that, but of course yesterday was a bit of a difficult day. It's been a bit of a rough weekend, but I'm really grateful. As a team, we got a 3rd and 4th. That's great points, and we move forward from here.
Well, you say a rough weekend. You saw you're in amongst the action at the start there, but you were able to pick your way through, find your strategy. So does this give some light at the end of the tunnel? You've got a couple of weeks off now before the French Grand Prix.
Well, I mean, firstly, I do really want to say a big thank you to the guys, the men and women in the garage who worked so hard to rebuild the car. I had a brand new car on Saturday morning. Unfortunately, it's something I don't do too often, but I'm so thankful to them for working so hard. And we've made some improvements this weekend, so we just have to keep chipping away at it.
Okay, Lewis, congratulations on another podium.
Thank you. Cheers.
So that's the top 3. Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton speaking to David Coulthard at the Red Bull Ring. Thank you very much for joining us. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. For full analysis from myself and Chadders and Benson, which sounds like a great little comedy duo, we will be back for the Checker Flag podcast, which you can download a little bit later on this evening. Max Verstappen, 2nd, still leads the championship, but Leclerc chips 6 points away at his title advantage.